All right, second video for my channel. I thought I would do a witchy tag. Figured it'd be one of the easier ways to kind of jumpstart everything, let you know a bit more about my practice. So I found this one. It's the Trad Witch tag, and I found it through The Witch of Bees and Bones, but it was originally created by Polish folk witch. So I'm a writer. I love to write. I guess I should say I'm a journaler. I'm not a writer. Um, there's some little preconceived notions there between the two. But yeah, so I've got my notes. I've got the questions. I will go ahead and put them down below as well in case you would like to do it. But yeah, so we'll just jump right in. So number one is, what craft do you practice? Is it folk magic, traditional witchcraft, wicca, modern witchcraft, ceremonial magic, eclectic, occultism, and etc.? I don't do well with labels. And then trying to label your particular practice is kind of like trying to catch smoke in your fist. But yeah, if I was going to simplify it, I call mine feral magic, or feral witchcraft, because I will just, if there's a spell I need to do or, something along those lines, I will throw together whatever I'm feeling in my heart needs to be done, and I don't cast a circle and I don't invoke any deities, and I just throw it all together, put my intent in it, and then release it. But yeah, so I guess I would fall under folk magic because a lot of it's very simplist. I don't like that word, but it is simplistic. There's not huge elaborate rituals. There's not huge ceremonial tools or anything of that sort. So it's definitely not ceremonial magic. I can tell you that. But yeah, so feral witchcraft, folk magic, very, very, very eclectic. Number two, what paradigm, faith, or philosophy informs your craft? So like, what is the spiritual model, animism, neoplatonism, I think that's how you pronounce that, psychological approach, energy model, or polytheism, etc. I believe in polytheism because I believe that all the deities are distinct individual entities. Bit of animism in there too, because I really do believe that animals, trees, plants, rocks, all of that, even modern man-made stuff, all of that has an energy or a spirit that inhabits that and motivates that thing. But yeah, faith or philosophy, again, that is very eclectic for me. I'm not Wiccan. I do not believe in the threefold law. I don't believe in, any of that. So it's definitely more personalized for me, which I can basically sum up in a phrase. There's the golden rule, treat others how you'd want to be treated. And mine is, don't be a dick unless it's warranted. Obviously, if someone is being a bully, I have no problem putting them in their place. But I'm not going to start anything first. But yeah, and then I do follow some of the left-hand path things as well, and so some of the tenets for the Temple of Satan really align with a lot that I believe and I practice. So those are what kind of inform my spirituality. So number three is, what cultures is your practice rooted in? Very American, which means it's super eclectic. Like my mother's mother, so my maternal grandmother was full-blooded Scot. And so there was a lot of folky things that she would do. And so I still follow those. Like I don't deal with the fair folk at all. Like not even a little bit. And I know that they are very popular in a lot of Wiccan and witchcraft circles. But yeah, I do not have any dealings with them. When I do come across them, I am painfully polite. Um, but yeah, they're not they're not welcome, and we'll just put it that way, in my home or my car or any of those things. I have gone ahead and staked my entire property lines with a railroad tie at each of the corners, and that sets that hard boundary as to what can and cannot come into our space. Um, but yeah, I pull from Greek, I pull from, or the Greek and Romans, I pull from uh, Egyptian, um, any culture that is not closed. I have no problem using stuff from that. If it is a closed tradition, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Um, those individuals have already been exploited enough, and that is something that I should not be taking. Nobody should be taking advantage of unless you're within that tradition or that culture. Number 4, how long have you been practicing and how did it all start? I've been practicing since 1996, so for quite some time now. And how it all started, didn't like some of the things that the church was saying. I did not like, I was raised Southern Baptist and Methodist, and I did not like the fact that women weren't really encouraged to speak up in church because a woman is supposed to be silent. Um, I've read the Bible because I tried really hard to be a good Christian. I tried so hard. But I have read the Bible cover to cover 5 times now. I have also read the Catholic Bible twice. Um, and yeah, I really didn't like a lot of that. And when I would bring those questions that I would come across, reading these things where they would contradict each other or what did they really mean, when I would bring those to my pastor, he was very unsupportive of me questioning, me having thoughts. So yeah, I come from a long line of very strong women, very opinionated women, and I think it gets stronger with each generation. So yeah, that didn't work for me. I came across, I've actually got the book here, but in my grandmother's library, she had Diary of a Witch by Sybil Leek. And I'm pretty sure this book is out of print now, because I know I was looking a couple of years back to get a better copy, because I mean mine is well read, very loved. But that was my first introduction into what witchcraft really was, and not just the stereotypes that we see. But yeah, and then I read that book, which opened up my eyes, and I went full Wiccan, reading Buckland and Cunningham and Silver Ravenwolf, and it just took off from there and has evolved in the years since then. Oh, that kind of ties in with number 5. What books or resources have you first started with? Would you recommend them to others today? So like I was saying, a lot of Buckland, a lot of Cunningham, and almost all of Ravenwolf's books were my big go-tos. Would I recommend them? Somewhat. There is good information in there, and my thing is if someone's wanting to start on the witchcraft path, I recommend them to start with Wicca. It's a good way to dip your toes into the occult world, in my opinion. It gives you a good foundation, and you got to know the basics before you can hit the advanced stuff. And so Wicca, at least for me, was a very safe bubble to start trying out like witchcraft spells and interacting with actual deities and, doing things like that. It was really good for breaking down the trauma and bullshit that I was still carrying around from Christianity. And so, yeah, that's where I would generally start people. Because I think it's a good beginner place. And that's not to slam Wiccans. There are tons of advanced Wiccans that I know and are personal friends, super dear friends that I've known forever. It is just not my path. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it works for you, go for it. It just doesn't work for me, or I just don't fit into it very well. But yeah, so number 6 kind of ties in. How has your practice and or paradigm changed over the years, if at all? So yeah, like I was saying, started out Christian, became Wiccan, and then once I started hearing about traditional witchcraft and that it didn't have to be all light and love, and that hexing when it's needed is 100% valid, yeah, it did a lot of changing. So when I was first starting, first off, I was a teenager. Um, very much, I had to invoke a god and a goddess for each ritual. It had to be, done exactly as it was laid out in the books. And again, it was a great starting place. It has since evolved to, I can't even remember the last time I cast Circle. It's been years. Generally speaking, male deities do not play a big role, if at all, in my practice. I have a few that kind of stick around on the edges, but I got more than enough male deity shoved down my throat in Christianity, and that's just something that I don't want any part of. I have worked with Sekhmet since the beginning. She showed up in my first ritual, and we have been thick as thieves since then. But yeah, I have other deities that will come in and work for a little while, and then they'll, be like, okay, I taught you what you needed to know, go have fun. I also do spirit keeping. And so I have a number of spirits that help me as well. And that's a new thing that has only been in the past 2 years that I have started doing. But yeah, lots of changes. If my younger self could see me now, she would probably run in terror from me, because I'm everything that Wicca says you're not supposed to be. Witches aren't evil, witches don't curse, witches don't hex. And this witch is here to tell you that if that's what you need to do, then by all means, do it. I view hexing much like gun ownership. For background purposes, I live in Texas. We like our guns here. I personally have a couple, and while I hope I never have to use one in self-defense, I don't have a problem doing so if my life or my family's life is threatened. I'm not going down dark alleyways and hunting this stuff out so that I can do this. It is a kind of a last resort for me, and I see cursing and hexing kind of that same boat. Again, I have no problem doing that if the situation warrants it. But it's not something that I'm constantly running around trying to find ways to do it, if that makes any sense. Gotta read. Okay, number 7. What does your daily or regular practice look like? What do you do on a regular basis? I don't do anything every single day. I have found that as I got further into my practice, I didn't need the daily stuff. It's kind of like riding a bike. At first, you have training wheels on, and that's kind of teaching you the habits and letting you practice in a safe way. But eventually, the training wheels are going to come off, and you're going to have to do it on your own. I am very much in that do it on your own portion. The only thing I would do that would be almost daily is when I am getting ready to go to work, and then also when I come home from work and I'm getting ready to go to bed. I have a big candle, one of the 7-day saint candles that is specifically for my spirits, and I light that and I read through all of the names just to let them know, hey, I'm thinking of you. Please come bless my day, keep me safe, burn assholes that show up at my job, standard stuff. I also have two that I specifically invoke when I'm driving to work, just to kind of keep my car and me safe and so that I'm not too terribly late to work. But other than that, full moons, new moons, I have just now gotten into the habit of doing oracle readings. Previously, obviously you can see them all up here. On the new moons, I would do new moon wishing charms. And that was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy that, and I really need to get back into that habit. I will definitely do a video on those later on. But I don't do huge elaborate rituals. I do invoke the harpies anytime we're having interesting weather. And again, it's Texas, it's springtime. Tornadoes, storms, rain, all of that good stuff comes through here quite regularly. And the harpies that I invoke and work with are their original formation of being storm deities. And so I have some little tea lights that I came across that are essentially they're storm scented, and they are so awesome. I definitely need to figure out where, because I got it at a secondhand shop. So I really need to figure out where to get more, because I bought up all that they had. And yeah, so they get incense, or they get the candles lit. They also will get, I have some incense that's like storm tossed or something like that. But yeah, I'll link that information down below, because that woman who makes that incense on Etsy is fabulous. She makes amazing incense and I love it. So I will recommend her to anybody and everybody who uses incense. Occasionally, the harpies also like either black coffee with coffee with nothing in it, just black coffee. They also really like extremely dark red wines. And so I've picked up some of the smaller bottles of that, and so I will pour that out for them as well as an offering. And it's just to keep me and my family, our property, and our home safe. And so far, knock on wood, we have been safe. At one point there were nine tornadoes that touched down in the area, and none of them were even in our county. Like, looking at the map, you could see where they had a simulation where showed that where the tornadoes actually touched down and then their path, and none of them were in our county. And so yeah, they're doing a good job. And like my husband says, he has full faith in the harpies, but again, we're not out challenging that. We're not going to take unnecessary risk. And yeah, I have found, especially with some of the darker deities, it is advisable not to push the limits with them. At least not on purpose. There are times I have pushed boundaries and limits just because I didn't know where that boundary was. And I learned very quickly. But yeah, so that's about all I do on a regular practice. Like, I don't get up, I don't meditate, I don't, light special candles on every single day and pray my intentions over them. I'm not always making oils. Oh, that was another thing that I used to do, was on full moons, I would make magical oils. That lasted for about a year. But I do have intentions of getting back into that. But yeah, just little stuff like that. It doesn't have to be huge and elaborate. Um, some of my journal keeping could be considered magical practice, because I'm, working out, does this situation warrant a spell? And if it does, what are some of the ingredients that I think would be good? And then, yeah, it goes from there. Number 8, are there aspects of your craft that you need to keep secret? In your opinion, is secrecy important to witchcraft? That is that is based on the individual. Um, for the longest time, I was 100% in the closet. I grew up in a very, 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 very small town um, that really would not accept the fact that I was pagan. Like, that would have been extremely dangerous. And I was already one of the weirdo kids in high school. I didn't need to give them any more ammunition. And then once I went off to college and stuff like that, I worked in childcare for the longest, which actually I started my first job in 1996, the same year that I discovered paganism. And in Texas, they can pull your teaching certificate for being an unfit role model. And that is how it is stated. It is so broad that while they technically could not fire me if it came out that I was a witch, they could find, it would give them ammunition and a reason to start looking for other stuff. My last job, when I was in childcare, I was running an after school program. I absolutely adored like 99% of the parents. I absolutely adored 95% of the students. Even the ones I didn't adore, I still enjoyed having them in my after school program. But I know quite a few of the families, should they have found out that I was a witch, they would have pulled their kids. Let's just put it that way. One family doesn't even allow their children to watch and or read Harry Potter because it deals with witchcraft. And I'm going, if fake witchcraft is evoking this much of a reaction, finding out that their after school teacher is an actual witch, it just wouldn't have gone well. And so I kept that under wraps for quite some time. Now that I'm no longer working for school districts, I'm out. I'm not out there like blasting it and putting it in everybody's faces, but I don't hide it. I don't. And I mean, a lot of my jewelry and stuff like that, you can tell, or at least other pagans can tell that I'm very much a pagan. And if I'm asked any direct question, I give a direct answer. And so that type of secrecy, that is 100% based on you and your situation. And also, just how do you feel about it? Like, some people they don't have a reason to have to hide it, but it's not everybody's business. So they just don't share that information. And then with what I will share with others, really depends on that other person. Nobody, not even my husband, knows everything that I do. Like, he won't even look at my grimoires. He won't look at any of my journals. It's very nice to be able to trust him, so I don't have to hide that stuff. Previous relationships were not like that at all. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to be showing things from my grimoire, because again, some of it is deeply personal, like these charms. I don't have a problem showing you those charms. Am I going to tell you what they're for? Absolutely not. Because that's not something I'm going to share with just everybody. Um, so yeah, not going to share it all. But I will share what I feel comfortable sharing, and I think that's a good way to live your life as well. Um, nobody nobody deserves to know every single little thing about your life unless you choose to allow them to. And I don't know, I have had such dealings with individuals who did nothing but take and never gave me anything in return. And it's very draining. And so I would just say, make sure that what you're giving out, you're getting back in some form. Because, I mean, if people are just taking it to twist it and be toxic, well, I'm not going to share that with y'all anymore. Um, but that goes beyond just witchcraft. That's everyday life as well. Yeah, so number 9, what are some of your favorite tools that you use regularly? Candles. I adore candles. I love having candles lit. I love, working magic with candles. Yeah, that is my big thing. I also do a lot of work with gemstones. Um, but if we're talking tools, um, I adore my athame. I love it. Um, I also have a beautiful wand. I have a lot of wands, and we will do a video on those. And I swear they breed in the dark because I have come across wands that I have no recollection of buying or receiving or getting in any form. They just seem to magically appear, even though I have the wand for me. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Incense would be the other one. Those are my big ones. So candles, athame, wand, and incense. So yeah, those are my big ones. Um, and then number 10, what books or resources would you recommend to newbie witches interested in your kind of craft? In my kind of craft? I haven't written that book yet. Uh, but yeah, like I said earlier, I would definitely recommend they start out with Wicca. I just finished a really good book. Um, oh my gosh, let me see if I remember. It was called Burn a Black Candle, an Italian American grimoire. And it's rare for me to come across beginner books like that and actually read them. This one I read cover to cover. I have notes because, again, I love to journal and write down stuff. Um, but yeah, that's the one that I would recommend for a beginner witch because it's a good blend of, you know, Catholicism into folk practices into witchcraft. To me, that made a very good bridge and kind of explaining like why we do certain things and, telling you, hey, look at the stuff that your own family does that they may not consider witchcraft or folk magic, but if you really look at it, that's what it is. Um, like down here in the South, for when it's New Year's, the first day of the new year, you eat black-eyed peas, greens of some sort. Oh, what was the other one? Pork. I want to say there's a fourth one. It's usually like corn. I don't know why we eat cornbread, but that is another one that has to be eaten, and those are all eaten by most of the South for good luck in the new year. And so everyone who does that will not consider that a folk practice or a magical practice, but it really is. And you can look into like the magical properties of black-eyed peas and greens and eating of pork and uh, the cornbread, which I don't know, I haven't found that one yet. When I do, I'll let you know. But yeah, look at what your family does and you'll find some really cool things that you can utilize, and you should utilize that because you grew up doing that. It's already a part of you. And so that book did a really, really good job of pointing out those types of things. But if you're wanting to look more towards practices like I do have a few books. This one is Kate Fuller, and it's called Of Blood and Bones, Working with Shadow Magic and the Dark Moon. I work a lot with bones. I adore bones, teeth, claws, feathers, hides, any of that stuff I've been drawn to since I was a little girl. Much to the dismay of my mother when I would bring home mostly disintegrated bones, and sometimes they were still a little juicy, if you catch my drift. But yeah, so like this one goes through very well. Again, another book that I didn't think I would read the whole thing, but I have, and I have notes on it. But like, let's see, it talks about, again, safe practices of using blood and other bodily fluids in your witchcraft, using animals and their parts, bones and skulls. And then the very end of it is, death and death rites, working with the dead in rebirth. It is a fabulous book. Absolutely love it. And so if you're a bone witch, or you like antlers and claws and all of that stuff, and you don't know why, and you don't know what to do with it, get this book. It is so good. It's worth every penny. Like I mentioned earlier, I do practice spirit keeping, and I'll do a video more in depth on that. But yeah, working with spirits, working with entities, working with any sort of divinity. If you're interested in any of that or want to deepen your practice, I have Jason Miller's Consorting with Spirits, and it's your guide to working with invisible allies. Another book that I have read cover to cover. I have notes. I have highlighted in it. And we'll go back and write more notes. But yeah, a really good book. Like he stresses, getting to know the local spirits in your area. Are there any myths or legends or, the boogeyman type stories from your area? Those are spirits of some sort that you can work with. And generally speaking, you'll get faster results, or this is what he's saying. You will get faster results from working with a spirit that's local to you, as opposed to invoking a deity, especially if, like, Sekhmet. Sekhmet is based in Egypt. So she's far away. She's not right here in the moment unless I've, asked her to come in or requested that she come in. And again, deities are like going to the president of the bank. Everybody wants to talk to him. It takes time. And instead, you are talking to, your mail delivery guy, as, again, in this metaphor. And, you're just wanting like some information on something. He would be a really good person to go to. He's not high up on the totem pole. I shouldn't say that. That's a terrible... Yeah, don't use that phrase. My apologies. But he's not high enough up on the food chain that everybody is wanting to go talk to him and ask him and get him to do things. So it'll be a little bit quicker if you work with a local spirit. This book does also go into invoking and working and conjuring various demons. That is a personal choice. I read through those sections. I don't particularly work with demons, but I read through that because there's still information there that can be applied to other entities and spirits and stuff like that. But yeah, highly recommend Consorting with Spirits. And then one that will be a very, very small niche is Werewolf Magic. This Authentic Practical Lycanthropy by Denny Sargent. I utilize, you can see I've taken notes and put things in there that I definitely want to try out from this book. But I've done spiritual shape-shifting since the beginning of my magical practice. That was part of what got me into magic. So some of this was very, very basic. And some of it's not the way I practice spiritual shape-shifting. But I find it interesting to see how other people do it. And it's nice to know that I'm not the only one. Makes you feel a little less crazy. But yeah, and again, like this book is specifically for werewolves, shifting into wolves and those types of things, but you can take this information and use it with any animal. For my undergraduate degree in anthropology, I got to write a fabulous paper going over the different shape-shifting mythologies and legends from around the world. Pretty much every single culture has some sort of shapeshifter. And so, if wolves are not your thing, well, there's werebears, were-owls, were-dolphins from South America down at the Amazon River. Selkies, which that was one of the interesting ones because they are seals that when they take their skin off then become women. So it's kind of a reverse shape-shifting there. But yeah, look into it. The entire animal kingdom is available to using spiritual shape-shifting. And yeah, so if you're wanting my personal blend, these would be a good way to start. But again, none of these are what I would consider beginner level. But sometimes you got to jump into the deep end to learn how to swim. So that is what I would recommend. And so that concludes the Trad Witch tag. Again, I got this one from the Witch of Bees and Bones, which I love. I've been watching her for quite some time now. And she says that she originally got it from Polish Folk Witch, which I will definitely be checking her out, or I should say them out. I don't know what gender they are. But yeah, so if anyone else would like to participate, I'm gonna write out the questions and put them down below along with, what else did I say I was gonna link? The incense that I use. But yeah, so I hope you have a great day. I hope you learned a few things about good old Bitey Mouse here, and I'll catch you in the next one.